Imagine the darkness. Not the darkness of a turned-off light, but a heavy, suffocating darkness that smells of rust, old blood, and damp stone. You are standing upright. You are exhausted. Your legs are trembling after days of interrogation. You want to lean back. You want to rest. But you can't, because mere inches from your eyes, inches from your chest, inches from your spine are iron spikes. This is the Iron Maiden, the Eiserne Jungfrau. It is the most iconic symbol of medieval brutality, a device designed not just to kill, but to torture with the terrifying intimacy of a hug. They say the doors would close slowly, so slowly that you could calculate the trajectory of every single point. One for the eye, one for the heart, one for the gut. The spikes were said to be positioned specifically to miss the vital organs. The goal wasn't death, not yet. The goal was to keep you alive, pierced and suspended in an iron casing, bleeding into the darkness, screaming into a face made of cold metal that would never scream back. It is the ultimate nightmare, the mother figure that consumes her children. For centuries, this device has haunted our collective imagination. It appears in movies, in video games, in heavy metal albums, and in museums around the world. It is the king of torture devices. But what if I told you that the story of the Iron Maiden is actually more twisted than the spikes inside it? What if I told you that the horror of the Iron Maiden isn't about what it did to the human body, but what it says about the human mind? Today, we are stepping into the box. We are going to unlock the history, the agony, and the shocking secret behind the Iron Maiden. And I promise you, by the end of this video, you will realize that the truth is far more terrifying than the legend. To understand the Maiden, we first have to understand the world that supposedly created it. The Middle Ages, a time often painted in our minds as an era of mud, plague, and absolute cruelty. In the medieval judicial system, truth wasn't something you found through evidence. It was something you extracted. It was something you carved out of a person. This was the age of torture as theater. Executions were public events. They were warnings. But the Maiden was different. Most torture devices, the rack, the wheel, the thumbscrews, were designed to operate in the open. You could see the mechanics. You could see the inflictor turning the handle. There was a separation between the torturer and the machine. But the Iron Maiden is psychological warfare. Look at the design. It's usually shaped like a woman, sometimes dressed in the fashion of a burgher maid or a noblewoman. She has a face, a stoic, frozen expression. Why? Why give a murder machine a face? Psychologists suggest this is the uncanny valley of torture. When a prisoner is thrown into a dungeon, they expect a monster. They expect a hangman in a hood. They do not expect a woman's face. The concept is diabolical. You are forced into an embrace. In human psychology, a hug is a place of safety. It's where a mother holds a child. It's where lovers connect. The Iron Maiden inverts this primal human need. It weaponizes intimacy. The victim enters the device. The darkness is absolute. And here is where the genius of the design lies. It's the isolation. Once those doors close, nobody can see you. You are alone with your pain. There are accounts, dark whispers from history, describing the acoustic horror of the Maiden. The device was thick, insulated. If you screamed, the sound would bounce back into your own ears, amplified, while the people outside heard only a muffled whimper. You were buried alive in a coffin that was actively eating you. The most famous account comes from the city of Nuremberg, the Iron Maiden of Nuremberg. Legend tells us that inside this specific device, the spikes were movable. They could be unscrewed and placed in different holes to accommodate prisoners of different heights. Think about that level of bureaucratic cruelty. The executioner measuring you, not for a suit, but to ensure that the spike meant for your eye didn't accidentally hit your forehead. They wanted the pain to be precise. One spike for the liver, agonizing but not immediately fatal, one for the shoulder to pin you in place, one for the buttocks, and two for the eyes. The victim would be left inside for days, not hours, days, the spikes acting as plugs to stop the bleeding, keeping the victim in a state of perpetual dying. It is a story that makes you shudder. It makes you wonder how human beings could ever sink so low. But hold on, there's a problem with this story, a very big problem. If you go to the archives of the Middle Ages, if you look through the thousands of court documents, execution records, and detailed journals of the 12th, 13th, 14th, and 15th centuries, you won't find the Iron Maiden. You'll find the rack, you'll find burning at the stake, you'll find beheadings, but the Iron Maiden? She's a ghost. So where did she come from? To find the Iron Maiden, we don't travel to the year 1300. We travel to the 1800s. This was the era of the Gothic Revival. It was a time when people were obsessed with the Dark Ages. Writers like Victor Hugo and the Brothers Grimm were romanticizing the past. Museums were opening up across Europe, and they needed tickets to sell. They needed shock value. Enter the antiquarians. These were the collectors of history, and sometimes the inventors of it. The first written record of the Iron Maiden as we know it doesn't appear until the late 18th century. It comes from a story written by a man named Johann Philipp Siebenkees in 1793. He wrote a terrifying account of a coin forger in the city of Nuremberg who in the year 1515 was executed by a device that embraced him with iron arms. It was a sensational story. It went viral, or at least as viral as things could go in the 1700s. People were horrified, they were titillated, and suddenly everyone wanted to see this device. So, some enterprising individuals decided to build one. The most famous Iron Maiden, the Nuremberg Virgin, was likely built in the early 1800s to satisfy this curiosity. But here's the twist that will blow your mind. When modern historians analyze the few surviving authentic Iron Maidens, they notice something strange about the parts. The wood came from one century, the hinges from another. The spikes, they looked like oversized nails that were hammered in later. The Iron Maiden wasn't a medieval torture device. It was a Frankenstein's monster. It was a kitbash, a piece of historical fiction cobbled together from old pillories, suit of armor stands, and spare metal parts. The spikes were never part of the original structure. They were added by showmen to make the box look scarier. Wait, let that sink in. The device that has defined our view of medieval torture, the device that terrified you as a child, is largely a hoax, a tourist trap. It's as if in the year 2500, historians found a prop from a Saw movie and assumed we actually used it on jaywalkers. Now, you might be feeling a bit cheated. You might be thinking, so the video's over? It's fake. Who cares? But don't click away, because the fact that it is fake is actually the most disturbing part of the story. Because it begs the question, why? Why did we invent it? And why did we want to believe it was real? Before we dive into the psychology of the hoax, we have to give credit where it's due. The 19th century hoaxers didn't pull this idea out of thin air. They stole it. There was a prototype, and this one was very real. Travel back further, 200 BC, Sparta. Meet Nabis, the last tyrant of independent Sparta. History tells us he was a brutal man, and he had a wife named Apega. Nabis demanded money from his subjects. If a citizen refused to pay up, Nabis would say, "Perhaps my wife Apega can persuade you." He would lead the victim to a machine, a mechanical replica of his wife. It was dressed in expensive robes. It looked like a statue. But under the robes, on her arms and her chest, were iron nails. Nabis would trigger a mechanism, and the statue's arms would clamp shut, crushing the victim against the spikes. The historian Polybius wrote about this. This wasn't a dark dungeon secret. It was a tool of extortion. So, the concept of the fatal embrace existed. The Schandmantel, or cloak of shame, also existed in the Middle Ages, a weighted wooden barrel worn by drunkards or gossipers to humiliate them. The 19th century hoaxers took the humiliation of the cloak of shame, mixed it with the ancient horror of the Spartan apega, added a dash of Victorian Gothic horror, and birthed the Iron Maiden. But this brings us to the psychological core of the video, the reason you are still watching. Why has the Iron Maiden survived in our culture while the real torture devices have faded? We know about the rack, but the rack is boring. It's just mechanics. The Iron Maiden is a character. We invented her because we needed her.